as opposed to attendees not being here. Everybody, it is Danielle Laporte and my dear friend.
Terry Cole.
And the conversation today is about love. And in thinking about this, I was really, I just have to defer to Joni Mitchell. I've looked at love from both sides now, and I really don't know love at all. The reason we're doing this is because more than once, Terry has sort of peeled me off the couch, smoking cigarettes in her backyard, in the middle of a divorce, breakups, longings, getting my own stuff together, family of origin stuff. And Terry is the person you want on your team. And every time I'm spending time with Terry, like we can be in a cab. This always happens. We're in a cab or we're walking somewhere, and Terry is getting texts, always asking for advice. And then she looks at me, she's like, "Oh, gotta talk Croft Ledge. Oh, gotta get rid of 411 on this." And there's a reason for that. So it's about lucidity, it's about heart, it's about Terry's pure intention. It's about Terry actually having the psychotherapeutic skills, not just made this up, not just made up her own coaching certification and talked to a couple people, but really there. And we were setting our intentions before this call, as we do with every event, whether we're getting on stage or it's online. And our collective intention together was to really help anybody who's listening to this and not listen to this to turn towards their own light, to get that clarity and that strength in relationships. And I think it's fair to say, Tara, that this call will skew towards romantic relationships. Yeah?
Yes,
Okay.
but it's all relevant because it's really all about you, the person asking the question, the people who are attending.
And this will, these theories are going to apply to your lover you have, the lover you don't have, and your boss, who may be your lover, and your parent, so it goes across the board. But I thought we should lay down some clarity on some concepts first.
Great.
So let's just do this rapid fire. I want to throw out a concept at you, and you tell us what it really means. Okay? So I had never heard the term coda before you, but I had heard codependent. So I now know that coda is shorthand for codependent. But Terry Cole, what's codependent mean?
Codependent means that when you're in a relationship, codependency describes the way you relate to the other person. So it's like what's happening to them and in their life feels like it's happening to you. You feel an uber responsibility. So example, if you come home and your partner, your husband, whoever, is in a terrible mood, although you were in a great mood before you walked in the door, suddenly your mood changes. And either you work very hard to get them in a better mood, right? But you immediately take on the energy that they're giving off. And it's a lot of work. Codependence, a lot of times originally, like in the 80s, Melody Beattie wrote a very famous book called Codependent No More, which a lot of the time had to do with addicts, being in love with an addict and sort of taking on their chaotic stuff. And what a codependent is really trying to do is trying to control everything in the relationship, desperately trying to control their partner, usually failing, but doing everything. Like a codependent parent will be doing the homework for a child because they have so much anxiety about the kid failing or not doing it. Now, obviously, that's not appropriate, right? You don't teach a kid anything by doing their homework, but that's an example of that. And there's a new kind of codependency.
Yeah.
I'll make it quick.
Yeah.
That
Go ahead.
I call it, it's a new kind of codependency that I'm talking about, which is called high functioning codependency. Because this is what I see in my practice more than the other kind.
So what's high functioning codependency? Is this just professional women who are behaving codependently? What is it?
Yes, it kind of is that, but it's not just that. It's that these are women who are incredibly capable in all these other areas of their life, and they're very smart. So there's a level of intellectualizing what they're doing because they're like, well, I'm not codependent, because they see that as weak. They see that as someone who doesn't have their shit together. They see that as someone who isn't them. And yet the cost for this high functioning, which is even, it's almost like a high functioning alcoholic, where you don't miss a day of work, you never get a DUI. It's even more insidious because no one can point to it, right? It looks like you've got it all under control, but you're just as exhausted.
And that's the cost of high functioning codependency is exhaustion.
Oh, and not being truly known and feeling like your partner is a child instead of your lover and not feeling like they can hold you or hold you up and take care of you. It certainly doesn't feel like a partnership when you're always feeling like you're left holding the bag, or in reality, you're grabbing the bag to make sure that it gets done the way that it should get done.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. So talk to us about blame, the dynamic of blame in relationships.
It's so toxic. And there are certain relationships that have a lot more, like certain specific styles of relationships that use blame a lot to stay in these polarized positions about things. It's very petty, obviously, but it's, I mean, minus the judgment. I say it's petty because a lot of times what you're blaming each other about, they're not even important things,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're like, well, I told you we had sugar. Why did you buy more sugar? Like, I don't get, like, just the negativity, making the other person wrong. And why do we do it? Insecurity, not feeling taken care of, feeling attacked by the other. So it's a style of relating in a relationship. And most of the time it's a learned style.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's go back to codependency for a second, whether you're high functioning or not. Why are we codependent?
Well, there's many reasons in childhood that bring this on in adulthood. So as children in a chaotic system, a violent system, an alcoholic system, a drug-riddled system, for children with violence in their life, but also parents who expect too much from them. Like there's like a certain like perfectionist thing where you have to do it all perfectly right. And this also, side note, which we'll talk about after, creates a lot of empaths. Children in chaotic or neglectful homes really creates empaths. And this is something that is like the blessing and the curse of the empath, which we can talk about after.
And let me just I want to pull out that childhood scenario. So when I hear that, you know, alcohol, neglect, any kind of addiction, I would also like to throw in there just like a long-term general instability.
Yes.
Right. So I don't come from an addictive background, but my parents are breaking up all the time. I mean, I didn't know if we were going to make it through Christmas,
Yeah.
where they were going to split up. I didn't know if we were getting a new house for spring, if I was going to have two apartments, and this was happening really frequently. So there's a few other like conditions to insert into why we get that.
There are what we call them is chaotic systems, because the instability that you describe would fall into a chaotic system because you didn't have that solid ground. So why does that create codependency? Because children were in a dangerous position if the system was violent, but even in an up and down system like you're describing, you're always like reading the room. You're always feeling like, is this a night where there's going to be a big brawl? Or is this a night when we're going to play Monopoly and it's going to be okay? I guess we're going to find out. But you're seeing, and this gives you the ability as you get older to read people, to read a room. And this can be very adaptive and very maladaptive. Because if you are an empath who doesn't know how to protect themselves, zip up their energy, do energy work, and I know obviously we're friends, we both know we do energy work, but many people don't, then you're like the, gaping wound, feel everyone's pain, feel everything, and it's so exhausting.
It's so exhausting. Yeah. Yeah. I can relate to that. I mean, I know how, I think I know, I assume I know who's in pain in the room, and I know who's got their shit together. And I used to think, and this is really the dark side of a lot of New Age teaching, I used to think that protecting myself wasn't really essential or necessary because I was love and I was on the light side and I was doing all of my work. And, people would come to see me on stage. I mean, they paid tickets to see me. They must have great intentions. And the drainage after, I wouldn't feel that. And this isn't just with like being a public speaker. This could happen from having tea with someone. This could happen. There's lots of ways the engagement can happen. And the feeling, it took me a while to really identify this. It would hit me the next day, and I would wake up feeling hungover. You know, and I think almost all of us have been hungover. Or you have a food hangover, you have a sugar hangover because you ate too much before. And I'd be like, I have the hungover today. And because someone is like hoovering my Shakti, and because I was just like, I've got so much to give. I come and listen and come and take it and hear it. Yeah. No more of that. No more of that. So there's more concepts I want to break down, and we're going to get into like the gestalt of these questions. But I think because we're here, just give us the solution for, first of all, what's the opposite of being codependent? Just give us that language to run through our systems.
Sure. Being interdependent.
Everybody interdependent. Oh, that's good. I love it. Okay. Interdependent. So you're really hold on. This is a real love moment. You're having a relationship. It's not one of you trying to make the other do something. That's really you here. And then, so interdependent is what?
It means exactly what you said. It means that there's a mutuality, but that you are independent. So you are a full unit alone. I like to say that you are a perfectly delicious piece of cake all by yourself. And when you find the right partner, there might be some delicious icing, but you don't need icing, right? It's just nice. It's good. An interdependent relationship is where, in my own marriage, Vic has certain special skills. I have certain special skills. I happily let him do what he's better at and thank him for it. He does the same for me. Where we're both bad, we try to get outside help, right? Sometimes you don't have great skills, you get outside help. But really being mindful to allow the other person to do their thing. Like, I'm super clear that in an interdependent relationship, there is no ownership, right? I'm just lucky to partner with this person.
You're not owning the other person. Right. You're taking ownership of yourself, but not of the other person. Terri, could you, because this is when I knew you was a loving person. Can you quickly tell the story about, and maybe you don't want to tell us because this would be too personal for Vic, but you and Vic going to a wedding, and that you've been to multiple weddings, and maybe Vic might have kind of busied himself before you needed to be somewhere important on time.
Yes.
And one day you're going to a wedding, and what has Vic done before? Like, as you're putting your lipstick on, what's Vic doing right before you need to go?
Well, he was getting in the car to make a quick trip to Home Depot, but he was going to be back in plenty of time.
Right. Okay. And what happened? Well, first of all, how did you handle that when you see Vic? Like, you know, you're zipping up your dress and he's going to fucking Home Depot. Okay.
Well, here, let's do a quick backstory, which is that the only thing that Vic and I fought about was time. I needed to be like a zillion hours early. He needed to be late. So this was a conflict. I didn't understand it. Talked to my therapist and was like, this guy's pretty much perfect for me. Nobody else, just me. But we have this weird conflict. And when we get into this conflict, I become a crazy person. Like, I'm sitting in the car beeping the horn like a psycho. Who does that? Like, I'm actually doing that. And I was like, I think I turn into like a different person. Something's wrong. And he's like, you explained. She was like, well, Terri, does Vic ever express his frustration with you about anything? I was like, nope. She was like, well, you're a psychotherapist. Do you think it's possible that he's never frustrated with you? I was like, well, no, but I can't make him. She's like, oh, but you can, because what's happening is he's expressing the anger that is too threatening for him to express consciously through a passive-aggressive behavior that will absolutely piss you off, so that you will express his anger for him. How's that? And I was like,
Women around the world listening to this right now are going, fucking thank you, yes. Yes, because we
so,
feel our partner's anger. Yeah. So, okay. So
yes.
jump cut to
So
we're
how do you
going
fix
to
it?
a wedding.
Yeah, we're going to the wedding. So
Yeah.
I'm dressed, having my tea. So I had a plan. Here was my experiment with my therapist that no matter how late he was going to make us be to this place we had to be, I was not doing that part of the dance. I was not going to be angry. I really looked at my psychotic need to be so early. And I was like, okay, well, you're not normal either. So you need to get off that whole got to be an hour early train and just be normal
Uh-huh.
and realize that if you're late, nobody's going to die. That's just the way you've been wired. So anyway, I decided it's fine. He comes back in, and now he's going to do his part of the dance, which is there was a guy in front of me who was going so slow. I was like, why do you have wood on the car? Just curious. Are you building something right now? We're supposed to be leaving. So I make the kids were there, so I made the kids go and get the wood off the car. I was like, don't worry. I said, listen, your tux is ready. It's all upstairs. I'm drinking my tea. He's continuing to do his dance on the dance floor, the I think she's
Being
mad
late.
dance.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And trying to get me to dance. Like, come on, sister, get on. He kept talking. I kept saying, hey, I'm not mad. Don't worry. I was like, babe, we have plenty of time. I don't even care. If we get there late, we'll sit in the last row. He's looking at me like, because, I'm always in the first row. He's like,
Wait, Terry is always in the first row. Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, you're so ready, and you're watching everybody come in late, and you're like, what the fuck?
What the hell's wrong with
Why are
them?
they late? Yeah.
They realize this is a wedding. It's a sacred event. Anyway.
Okay.
So he's still doing his thing. We end up moving. We go down. He comes, we leave. Though he's still in the car being like, I'm really sorry. If that guy, he's doing the same thing because he's really trying to provoke me to be mad because he is still frustrated. He didn't get his fix. I didn't explode. I didn't make him wrong. Right? So then he now it's weird because we're driving and I'm actually not mad, which was the most revelation. It was such a revelation for me where
You
I
were
was like,
actually not mad.
I actually wasn't because I refused to let him shove his disavowed anger up my ass. I mean, or down my throat, however you want to
That's
look at
why
it.
it's called Real Talk with Love. Yeah. Okay. Um, and then what happened? Like, when does he stop dancing?
Well, that honestly was the last time we danced in that way. On the way back from the wedding, the whole way there, I was like, babe, I feel like we've had this conflict about time and I'm just opting out completely. I love you. I'm not mad. I realize I'm nuts about time and I'm not doing that anymore. So I'm just not. And then he was like, really? Hmm. So he didn't know what to say because he's like, this is weird. On the way back, I explained to him Ruth, my brilliant therapist. I told him what I thought happened and that she was saying it's his disavowed anger. And he's like, why do you want me to be mad at you? I'm not mad. Why you always want me to be mad? I'm like, okay, I don't want you to be mad. I want you to be honest. Tell the
Right.
truth if something frustrates you. Is there anything I'm doing that's annoying you? And he was like, well, sometimes when you wash your hair, a lot of it gets in the drain. Maybe you could take that out.
Okay.
I was like, okay. Never in 20 years, I've never washed my hair and not cleaned the drain. Like, just tell me. I was like, I don't want it to just be okay. I want you to be super psyched in this relationship. And you just saying, like, it's fine, it's fine. I don't want it to be fine. I want you to be jumping for joy, happy, you
Mm.
know? And that was it. We both, and listen, you fall back into it once in a while, but not much, honestly. That was it, where we both understood what was happening. And then he had to start talking about how he felt. Yeah, don't worry.
Oh,
He did.
there's so much in that story. I mean, that is a treasure chest of issues and solutions and such a great example of you get to choose how you feel in every situation, and then of course you get to choose your behavior. And I
Mhm.
think the most um, like this most striking thing in the story is you really weren't mad. You got yourself to not be mad in that situation. So, you know, so much self-help stuff is about inner peace, but it's so confusing about how to get there. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, oh, we could do this for 3 hours. Let's talk about the themes, the big themes that came up in the questions that came in. So we really
Sure.
honor everybody who showed up. And
Sure.
then there's more isms that I want to throw at you, and you can just, as my
Yeah.
mother would say, you can just like shoot the bullshit out of the air. Okay. So Ter, well, let me just address everybody who's watching and listening. You know, we reviewed the questions, and this happens with any kind of event like this, where you get hundreds of responses, and you can start to see the theme. So, you know, we could specifically answer Marie's question or Emily's question or Jennifer. But what we did was there's a lot. But what we did was we looked at like the big themes so we can just really serve everybody. So what did you see here? And my assumption, correct me if I'm wrong, is that what showed up here for us is what's showing up for you in your one-on-one practice in the past. So what's going on with humans who identify as being women?
Yes, and then there's some that are really like super specific that maybe we will hit in the end, like someone who's working in a war zone. Like, I don't feel like that actually applies to everyone, you know what I mean? Except probably the dynamic does. One theme that I'm seeing is there was a lot of people asking questions about how can they get their partner to be different? How can they get their partner to work on themselves? How can they get their partner to communicate better? How can they get their partner to care about their needs more? Meaning the woman's needs. And so what I say about those things is that my theory and what I teach women is that you are the common denominator in your life, and that you have to actually be the change you want to see in your relationship, the same way, you know, Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. And I don't mean give more, like I'm not saying that. I'm saying be specific, like get clear about what you want and why you're not getting it. So how do we do that? You have these downloaded blueprints, like we all do. You were just talking about your parents. I'm always talking about my parents' marriage and how that impacted me. There's all these unconscious things that get laid down, and this heavily influences our attraction, like who we attract and what we do. You know, I mean, thinking about all of this, everyone who wrote things in, is how do you actually, and those of you guys who are on the line right now, how do you actually want to feel in your relationship? And again, this is back to...
Okay, I have a solution for that. I have an answer.
I have an idea.
You should get clear on your core desired feelings. I can relate that to a personal story. So when I was writing the desire map, in a nutshell, for anybody who doesn't know about that, the idea with desire mapping is that you get clear on what I call your core desired feelings. It's 4 or 5 preferred states of being that are really driving everything you do. And so once you get clear on that preferred state, then everything, your bucket list and your to-do list and where you're going to holiday and who you hang out with and love is a reflection of those core desired feelings. And of course, you don't always get it, but your life is really about generating those. And it's a really powerful, creative way of living. You're really taking charge of how you want to feel. And when I was writing that book, I don't know, I guess you see heavy sigh, the story's coming. When I was writing that book 6 or I don't know how many years ago, 6 or 7 years ago now, I knew that my marriage was going to end. And I was working with an energy worker at the time, just one of my many crew that helped keep my shit together. And I said, look, I think I'm going to need about 4 months to finish this book. And we just have to keep me together with some chicken wire. So I can stay in this situation and get this book out and then do what needs to be done. And at the same time, I was so hopeful that might change, but that the fracture was becoming really evident. So on one side, this is not going to work. On the other side, there's still hope, because women, empathetic women, we can find the spore, the invisible spore of hope on the ceiling in the corner, and we can take it down and we will put that on our altar and light a candle and think, I had a feeling one day for a microsecond that this could work. I'm going to hold on to that. And I knew while I was writing it, I was talking about, of course, my own core desired feelings. One of them at the time was communion. And that was it. That was all I really needed for the clarity. I want more than anything to feel in communion with life, with the life force, with the people in my life, all the people in, closest to me. And I feel the opposite of that, which is separation, antagonism, all of that. So core desired feelings help knowing how you want to feel in a relationship. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. What's the other big juicy theme that is showing up in these questions and that show up in your practice with women?
I mean, the high functioning codependency, the empath, the real thing is about not knowing the confusion around why they're repeating these unsatisfying behaviors. It's like there's this compulsion to repeat that even super smart women don't understand why they can't stop it. When they can run companies, when they can birth children, when they can do all of these amazing other things in the world, they're like, shouldn't I be able to figure this crap out? Like, why is it so confusing? And so I've, over the 20 years that I've been doing this, I came up with a way, like a 5-pillar system of people for women to be able to just go through. What is the first step to understanding why you are the way you are? It's self-awareness. There's a million billion things I tell you to do in there. Maybe not a million, maybe 5, but things to do about self-awareness. Then you move into self-knowledge, which is very specific to you, which is also why there's a lot of other dating things out there in the world, like finding your soulmate and those types of things, that if they're not getting into a deep dive into who you are personally and what experiences you had in your early life, not what everyone had, just what you had in your early life, that the one size fits all doesn't work, which is why I created this Real Love Revolution around what actually does work. It's all about going in. So after self-knowledge, where we unearth all the stuff that's happened in your young life, from what happened in your childhood besides your family of origin, because that matters too. The school situations, the friendships, some people were bullied, and you might have had a great family of origin, but the school thing still negatively impacts your sense of worthiness around love and desirability. So it matters, And so we're cutting out all the crap that doesn't matter. We don't need to talk about third grade ever, unless third grade contains something that happened that is stopping you from getting what you want right now in 2017. Because I feel like there's a lot of, in therapy, which is why I became why I became a relationship coach, is that in therapy there's so much going back where you're like, oh my God, okay. Like,
I know, God damn, we're going to talk about my inner child again. Really?
And we are, only if that injury, that unresolved injury, is impacting you not getting what you want today. Right? So after you have self-knowledge, you move into self-compassion, which is the fourth, probably maybe I don't know, they're all super important, because the truth is you can't get to the end of it without doing all of them. Because self-compassion is one that I find that all of my perfectionist women have none of. They're so mean. They've got the inner mean girl. They got the mafia mind going all the time. Compare and despair is like a daily experience. Why is this person doing better than me, looks better than me, has a better butt than me? All of these things where they're not focusing in on what's amazing about them. So compassion for what your young self experienced. Compassion for how scary that was. My life experience, your life experience, those little kids deserve a grown-up us to say, hey, that was scary, but I'm here now. Like, I got us. I'm doing it. You don't have to worry. Because if you don't do that, that injured little kid is really like running your romantic life. Not the best way to be, And then in the end is self-love. That's the last pillar. So
let's go back to 4 for a second. So your wounded inner child is running your adult love life. Yeah. So for a lot of people, that's revelatory. Okay. And then let's go to the last step, which is self-love. Yes. Self-love comes after self-compassion. This is going to sound really basic, but it's really profound. What does self-love look like?
It looks like drawing boundaries with ease and grace. It looks like being able to say no easily. Being in touch with how prioritizing your desires, your feelings, what you want, letting your preferences be known easily, and being fine. It doesn't mean, as you said before, it isn't about always getting what we want. I want you to tell the truth, to learn to tell the truth, and this is loving, because I want you to fight for being authentically known in your life. Telling the truth isn't about getting getting what you want always,
I think not enough people in this space, or let me just say this in a non-critical way. I think we need to talk more about the weight, the downside, the consequences of loving yourself. Because what we hear a lot is all the positive things that happen when we love ourselves, and the pleasurable feelings and the inner peace, and you're going to attract someone who, kind of reflects back that love, who can really meet you. But loving yourself can be really isolating. Loving yourself can make you really unpopular. You cannot love yourself without some pushback and some disruption in your life. And like, you need to know that that's part of it. It's like, if I'm loving myself and I'm feeling good, but my relationship with my mother is totally on the skids because I'm standing up for myself now, or I'm making choices about being a powerful person. I'm speaking the truth. Yeah, there are consequences, but it's worth it because why? Sorry?
Well, first of all, there are consequences, but a new normal will emerge if you don't cave. So those consequences are there. It's painful.
God, it's tweetable. It's out of context, but I gotta write that down. Hashtag a new normal will emerge if you don't cave. This is so important for everybody to hear. Yeah.
Right. And so, because here's the thing, you guys, in your relationships, like we love these complicated people. We love our parents. We love people, even though they're nuts, right? We do. We love them. And so the fear, the little kid is afraid that if you say no to dad or no to mom, or you do a different dance with them, draw a certain boundary, that you will be, kicked out of the tribe and starved to death and die. There's like some kind of a primal fear. So when you realize, this is where the adult you has to realize that your relationship with these people is more flexible than that, and that you are not that fragile. So you're going to do a different dance, just like I did with my husband around time. And there was some pushback, right? He was sort of like, I don't think that's true, blah, blah, blah. But once we got into it, then he could see it. With people, if you don't have an open dialogue, you don't need to warn them, even though you want to. Do you know, like when we want to change something, we're like, I'm going to tell them it's going to be different now. I'm not doing that anymore. They're not, and I'm always like to my clients, like, hey, we don't need to send out a warning shot. We're good. How about we just change? Slowly but surely, baby steps, we change the way that we interact so that it's more aligned with who we actually are and how we feel. So we're less angry at the people we love. We're less bitter. We're less passive aggressive with the way that we're handling our frustration. And they will come aboard. But you just can't cave. They're going to do what Dr. Harriet Lerner, who I love, is a brilliant PhD. She wrote all these books in the 90s. You know her. She wrote The Dance of Anger, The Dance of Deception, Intimacy, Marriage. There's so many. She's amazing, though, like my hero. And she's the one who I'd first ever seen relationships and the dance, So she basically says, make the move. They're going to do a change back move where suddenly someone might have a fake heart attack, or they may do something that's going to try to get you back in line, and you can stay lovingly connected and not get back on the dance floor. And sooner or later, they just kind of stop. Like, it actually is. They now don't feel so threatened because you are still lovingly connected to them. You're just not doing a whole bunch of shit that you don't feel like doing.
I love it. Okay, let's do some questions.
All right, I got them.
All right, so this sums this one up. His worldview is very different than mine. I'm rainbows and he is dark clouds. I think we don't need to go deeply into this woman's really beautifully written story. So the issue here, really opposite, different worldviews. What's happening here, Terri Cole?
She said, one thing that she said is, that's okay. Can two people who are so opposite make it work? And what I wrote in the little notes is, well, sure. But the question is, the empowered question is, at what cost to
At what
your
cost?
happiness?
People. Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, my feeling is, I think this lovely person knows the answer to her question, which is that it's a heavy relationship. I think she feels guilty to leave it, but I think that she probably wants to because she wants someone who might be more aligned with her worldview. That's my 2 cents.
Let's do a rapid fire of the cost of staying in. So we cover the cost of being codependent. I can tell you the cost of staying in from my own experience and from all my girlfriends. We're all on our, like, everybody's been divorced once, not all of us, but right? We had our starter marriages, and the cost is, it's this foggy gray feeling. The cost is exhaustion. The cost is mental confusion. The cost is anywhere between an extra 10 to 50 and upwards pounds. The cost, your children pay.
Oh, yeah.
The cost is you're not totally there. I mean, when I left that marriage relationship, one day, there was another argument, and I was crying yet again on a Saturday for all of the same reasons. And Mikey was downstairs wanting to do something because it's Saturday and let's go out. And I just thought, this is it. I'm done. I'm done crying on Saturdays. And yeah, so that's a cost. And with high functioning people, it's hard to say that the cost will be your career, because a lot of us high functioning people who are engaging in codependent relationships are over tolerance, which I talk a lot about in the upcoming book. Over tolerance for the sake of being spiritual. My career didn't suffer because I was in a difficult relationship. I kept plowing, but I suffered.
Right.
I'm really fucking tired. And I think you can look at pictures of me from the last, can you still hear me? I think I just hit my mic.
Super loud and whatever you're doing, stop it.
Can you hear me? Am I normal now?
I can hear you. Just don't move your mic because it's like scratching.
Okay. Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay. We just plow and we crank through, and then we wake up and our adrenals are fried, or we have a tumor, or our dog is dying and we haven't really noticed, and our other relationships are suffering. So
yep.
There are many costs, and they are deep, and they take a long time to heal from. Yeah.
I think that one of the most important costs is not being known. Because you're trying to make that person know you, and they're not giving any shits about it. They're too busy in their own world, and so, or they don't have the capacity. Even if we took the judgmental vibe off that whole thing, perhaps they're really incapable because of their own narcissism or self-absorption, whatever. But that's a major cost, because if you stay in a relationship where your true, authentic self isn't being recognized and celebrated or even seen, that it's easy to have it be completely lost, even to you.
I'm so with you. Yeah. Okay.
I have another question.
Yeah, go for it.
Let's do this one, because it's someone who's been in a relationship with someone who's been a friend for 3 years. It's the brother of her friend, who now the friend doesn't talk to her anymore. And the guy is like saying he's not ready to be in a serious relationship. And what I can say from all of this, the sister's not talking to her anymore. And she wants him to see that they're in a great and amazing relationship. And I want her to see that I don't think they actually have a great and healthy relationship. And he's in a relationship with you, but he's hiding it from his family and his friends. And what I actually care about is, and you're afraid to tell him how you feel because you're afraid he's going to leave you, is what you're saying. And I want to know why you want to be in a relationship with someone who you feel so afraid that even just telling him how you feel will make him go. And what I really want you to do is ask the 3 empowered questions. And you guys, everybody listening, these are 3 empowered cues that each one of you can take away and understand something about your repetition in these romantic experiences. They're super easy. I'm just going to hit them right now. 1, who does this person remind me of? 2, Where have I felt like this before?
Mm-hmm.
3, why is this dynamic familiar to me?
Why is
So
this dynamic familiar to me? Mm-hmm.
yes, so
Can
this,
you give us an example of that? Why? So that has a
sure,
lot of layers in it. Why is this dynamic familiar to me?
sure, I'll just give you an example out of my own life, which is
Okay.
when I thought I wanted to not be with men who were like my father. So
Mm.
I was always attracted to these very European men who were very affectionate and
Right.
passionate and not waspy, golf
Mm-hmm.
playing, Brooks Brothers suit wearing, Wall Street Journal reading white dudes like my dad, who were like emotional IQ of a rock. So I really
Uh-huh.
wanted someone who had a emotional IQ and could, oh, and so I was like, I'm doing the opposite of my father. I'm dating guys who are nothing like him. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
except they all lived on another continent.
Right. Yeah. So what's
And
the
so,
setup there? Longing, separation,
yeah.
unavailable.
And
Yeah.
they were ultimately exactly like my father, which is
Yeah.
unavailable. And so again, we can think consciously, like, hey, I'm so not doing this same thing. But you actually are. If you're still not getting what you want, part of your unconscious repetition is still in place somewhere. Because when it isn't, when it's all unstuck,
Mm.
things will start to fall into place with ease and grace, these meaningful coincidences and synchronistic happenings. And listen, I'm not saying it's magic, because my tagline is it's not magic, it's psychology, because that's the truth. But it does shift when this unconscious material gets up and out.
Mm. Okay, let's do another question.
Sure.
What's one of your hot ones?
All right. How do you know when it's time to move on or to hang in a little bit longer and try a bit more?
Yeah. Oh my God.
So I was like, hey,
I know
Jennifer.
10 people in my life right now who are they're on the edge of their seat. Go to her. How do you know when to call it quits?
Well, because here, this really depends on why you're questioning whether you should stay or you should go. Are these things, right? Good relationships are work, but they're worth it, right? If there's the potential to grow together, if the person is willing, if you're doing those things, but it's not great yet, but there's that willingness and that openness. If you basically know down deep in your heart that this guy could be great, but he's just not your guy because you're not in love with him or you don't really want to make out with him or whatever the reasons are,
Mm-hmm.
that you know. And what I find that confusion is a code word in for so many women because we are such empaths
So
that we
true.
can see what's so great about them, like they're so loving and awesome, but I'm so torn. So if you feel yourself saying this, I have to honestly say that I think that you know that you need to make a move, and maybe you're afraid to do it because you don't know how, or maybe you're afraid to do it because you feel like you won't find anyone better or who will love you as much. But how you feel matters. And when it's just you and you're looking in the mirror, I promise you, you actually know the truth about what you should do. Even asking that question, right, Jennifer, you're asking that question, which makes me think that you know it's time to move on. But
Mm-hmm.
that you almost feel like you need to be justified, like the person needs to cheat on you or punch you in the head or do something terrible. And you don't need to. Your feelings are really a good enough reason to do anything.
Mm-hmm. Ah, so many good ones in there. Confusion is a code word. Your feelings are a good enough reason to do anything, really. Yeah, within moral bounds.
Yes.
All right. Give me one more question. We might go back to questions, but
Okay.
I want to give you a rapid fire. What's another juicy one?
All right, hold on. Juicy one. And this one, I don't know. This one is from Australia, and she basically was telling me this whole thing about how there's no good men in Australia, all of Australia, the whole of Australia, no good men. And that she, has nothing to lose. She was psyched that she got the email from you and was like, well, at this point, nothing's happening. I got nothing to lose. I'm just going to see what they did. So I don't believe this person. Anyway, I say this. I say, I don't know about if there are no good men in Australia conclusively. Like, I can't say that. But I can say that you looking into your own frustration and how you're feeling and what's going on. And maybe the Tinder and right, left swipe stuff isn't for you. But I promise you, if you ask yourself those 3 empowered questions about the last few people you dated, right? Who do they remind me of? Where have I felt like this before? And why is this dynamic familiar to me? Something will be revealed. And that there's also something about your parents' relationship, the home that you grew up in, just start looking at that and writing down. And we'll send people like questions and things that we have workbooks that we can send for them to. One sec. Sorry, other questions are coming in. Yeah. That was a really good one. Thanks for putting it out, because we had so many, they were not in there. Anyway, so that's for the lady in Australia. This question, this person was just doubling off of what we were just saying about, so a lot of self-awareness from childhood relies on memories, which is so true. So how do you deal with that if the person has very little memory of childhood, especially the times that they were wounded? Because this is a way that your mind, so you, whoever wrote in, I imagine that you had something dramatic or traumatic happen in your childhood. Here's the thing, the way that you feel, first of all, will tell you something. Your body, the wisdom of your body, the things you react to when someone raises their voice or something happens, that's telling you that there's this unresolved thing in there, you know? And that's one thing. And I also promise you that if you do this very slowly, that if you just gently, one little step at a time, start going backwards, everything that you need to know will be revealed to you very gently. So I don't believe in this like super repressed thing where we're trying to force something out. If you are doing it in the right way, which is slowly, just one memory at a time and writing things down, I promise you things will be revealed, but it must be in a safe container, which is part of why your mind doesn't want you to remember, because your little kid is afraid.
Your mind doesn't want you to remember because your little kid is afraid.
Too scary.
Yeah. Inner child, you cannot get away from her or him. I have tried. I have tried dozens of therapy sessions. Please, let's not go there.
But it's real stuff.
It's so real stuff. Yeah. Okay, let me throw out some concepts to you, okay? First of all, I think we just in cultural sensitivity need to address, this is not necessarily gender specific. We're using the term woman, however you identify. If you are predominantly masculine, predominantly feminine, no matter what your gender is, this is all applicable. So love to everybody's choices. But I'm going to continue to use just really conventional language on this. So, Terri, do I have to give my man space? Do I have to make my man feel like a fucking hero so that I get what I want? Because this is a lot of, liberation mentality. I'm hearing this a lot. What do you think of that?
I don't think so. I think that there are people who can find that and that it works for them, right? A lot of it depends on your attachment style. Have you heard of this phrase? Attachment style?
Attachment style. No.
So this is actually very common.
I've heard of attachment parenting. I'm an attachment parent, but
yes, exactly. Similar but different. But when you know your attachment style, which I also teach all about this, which is, there's three main attachment styles. People who are securely attached, which means that you are pretty good with intimacy, you can express yourself, you can hear your partner's feelings, it makes you feel good to be attached to other people, you can create long-term meaningful relationships, and it seems to work that way. Then you have people who are anxiously attached. These are people who are more codependent, people who are more interested in what their partner is doing and kind of maybe snooping on their phone and worried that they're going to leave them, and feels that they want more closeness than their partner wants. So that's someone who's anxiously attached. And of course, the securely attached people, just because you're securely attached, it doesn't mean that you only attract secure relationships, because securely attached people have a very calming effect on the less securely attached people. So that's why we end up with, being codependent and blah, blah, blah. So you have the anxiously attached, and then you have the avoidantly attached. And these people really want intimacy and connection, but when it starts happening, they feel suffocated. So therefore, these right and left swipe dating apps are kind of perfect because the short-term relationship is their specialty. And you will find, unfortunately, for the anxiously attached people, it's good for them when they can attach themselves to a securely attached person, right? Someone who's solid, who calms them. But a lot of the time, they find themselves drawn to avoidance, which of course is like a terrible combination. I'm anxious and you're stepping away, and that just makes me want to step forward more, So anyway,
Question.
back to, I wanted to throw that in. It's probably too fast, but makes sense. You get it?
In there. Yeah.
Got it. Back to the space thing quickly, is that I think that a lot of that is about being inauthentic.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. My feeling about this is just like, you know what? You can't, don't muster it up and tell your man, oh baby, 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 so ha ha ha, you're such a hero if you're not feeling it. It's so fucking manipulative.
Yes.
Just fall in love with someone who is
Yes.
heroic in your perspective. You respect them so much. They are doing heroic things in your view. Otherwise, it's a game. I'm not interested in the game.
Yep. I agree. And I don't feel like it's necessary. And yet, for some people, I'm not saying that it can't work. If you're in that situation and there's a give and take of some, like a hero, but he's actually doing those things.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't like it as a ploy to keep someone happy or manage your man. Like when your man is a project, you're not really that. To me, that's not the real love revolution. That's like 1955.
Mm-hmm. So, what is the real love revolution? What does it look like? What do relationships look like in that new frontier, in that sacred
That new
frontier?
frontier. Well, it really, I mean, it really starts with participants learning to fall madly and deeply in love with themselves in a real way
Mm-hmm.
and in an actionable way in all ways. So that's in all relationships. So this is a course, right, that we're talking about it, but it has to do with your relationships with friends. You really do a massive inventory of your entire life because so much of the time we have people in our life, in our inner circles, who don't need to be there,
Mm-hmm.
who are not helping us, who are making us feel worse, who are judging the crap out of us. Like, that's not friendship, you know? And yet that's repeating something too. So these downloaded blueprints are valuable to understand what they are in all of your relationships. Because if you had a super judgmental mom and you just find that all your friends are judgmental as F,
Mm-hmm.
then you're like, oh, look, I'm just calling in my mom over and over again in my friendships. And you don't need to do that. But it's a loving thing to do, to really be discerning about who gets the privilege of being in your inner circle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when
Mm-hmm.
you do all of this work, which is small steps along the way of this 10-week thing that I've created, in the end, it's like imagine that you're a lighthouse and all the years of misinformation and depressing relationships and disappointments are like beep, 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 and all of a sudden it's like your love light gets super dim so you don't even know where it's at. When we go through this process in this very systematic way, we're just one layer of soot and crap and muck and misinformation at a time, taking it off. So in the end, it's like your love light becomes so bright, whether you're in a relationship or single, either you're infusing that light into your relationship or you become so bright that you're like this lighthouse that the same way the ship can find it, right? In the lighthouse, it's happy to find it. Your beloved can find you instead of you feeling like you would, that you have to twist yourself up in a pretzel to get there. Because, Danielle, you know this to be true, that if information were all we needed for transformation, everyone on this call would actually be happily married with their perfect yoga butt, eating their steamed kale in their house in the Hamptons, looking at their family photos, smiling. That would be.
Yeah.
But what do we need? We need integration.
We need
How do
integration. Can we
we?
talk about the hard work for a second?
Sure.
So, I'm hearing all of the layers. Like you don't just jump from what's the first out of the five steps?
Self-awareness.
You don't just go from self-awareness to self-love. You got it. There's a graduation, right? You can't skip the steps.
Yeah.
And I just want to get really real about how hard this work is for all of us and how worth it is. Worth it. And my learning has been around time in all of this and going through those steps. And the more attached I get to how soon things happen, to like when the due date is on my vision board, on why it hasn't happened yet. Oh God, I just suffer more. If I just get into like, I am doing my work and it feels so good. I'm eating clean. I'm having honest conversations. I'm bringing my whole honest self to my career and my creativity. I'm a present mom. I'm a good friend. I can do that. And if I go, that relationship or that awareness or it just don't, I just wrote about this recently. Holding out is the most underrated spiritual practice there is. And holding out runs through all 5 of those steps. Not holding out, I think you have to go almost back to step 1. So just like love yourself enough to hold out for quality and to give your space to get not qualified yourself, but to raise your own frequency so you can really be of service to the world. Yeah, it's worth the wait. Yeah.
You're worth the wait, you know?
Yeah.
So if you say for yourself that you get the self-awareness down, all of these things just naturally sort of flow into the next. And although, like you said, we want to skip it, you can't. Self-awareness leads to self-knowledge, leads to self-acceptance, because how can you possibly change anything from a place of denial? Or like the fake memory drawer, which we all have one of those. We're like, it was great, except it actually wasn't. And we're never looking at that. And the healing comes from the shitty drawer. Do you know what I mean? That's the one we need to figure out. So self-acceptance is huge. And that self-compassion, all of the perfectionist women watching this don't have self-compassion because they're too busy focused on the 2% of the thing that wasn't perfect. And that's a huge one before you move into self-love, which is a practice. Self-love is not a destination. This is like a way of life, the same way that you don't expect to get the ass of your dreams by going to the gym once, right?
Right.
We know we got to keep going to yoga if we want a yoga butt.
Okay. Let's do a few more, just rapid fire relationship questions and really be a,
You want me to hit for my thing or you got him? Okay. Oh, I got it. I'm 40 years old and still single. The divorce of my parents was very hurtful 30 years ago. How can I overcome my fear of intimacy and find a man who loves me? Is that it? Got it. How can I overcome my fear of intimacy? Okay. Well, you know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say you have to unpack. And this is Malika who sent him in. You have to unpack what happened for young Malika during your parents' divorce and what part of you is feeling guilty about wanting it to be better than it was for them. Because I think a lot of us underachieve in this way because we're afraid. If I have a happy marriage and my parents didn't, will they abandon me? Will I lose their love? Will I lose their affection if same thing with out earning our parents, out succeeding our parents. And most healthy parents are super psyched for you to do all of the above, but the little kid who's the one who's afraid to be abandoned inside unconsciously is like, maybe I'll just keep struggling so that I don't lose my parents' love. Okay. So I would say I'd love you to unpack that.
Terry Cole, is casual sex ever okay? When? Question mark.
You know, hey man, that's so super personal. I would look inside and say, why? Sometimes a girl needs to get laid and that would be casual sex, maybe. Some women never want to have casual sex because it depends on what sex means to you. As our friend Chris Carr would say, respect your God pod. And if you can have casual sex or want to have casual sex and feel empowered and respected, go for it. But the fact that you asked the question makes me think that you probably don't want to. So maybe. Now, I don't know if I answered that right, because really that's only you can answer that, but I think it's an interesting question.
What boundaries do you set up for compromising? What are healthy compromises?
It's a really good question. Part of it is you have to learn to communicate effectively and compassionately. That's the first, because there's no compromise if you don't have the language of actual communication, loving communication, where you're using I statements. And I don't mean being completely corny. I just mean, honestly, it can't be the language of blame, because there will be no compromise if you say, you always, if you would just not. Right there, you're already not, there's no compromise. So the first step in that is learning to communicate. You could do imago therapy. You can buy a book by Harville Hendricks. You can take my course. There are many ways that you can learn how to effectively communicate, but that's always the first step. And both of you having like the vision of what is fair. Because I find in couples, you have to have a couple's vision of what is fair. Because if not, one person will always be doing more than the other and feeling less loved or less taken care of than the other.
That's so juicy. Let's address, you wanted to address this question from the woman who's living in the war zone. So she lives in an international expat community in a war zone, a complex crisis situation, and she finds herself surrounded by flaky aid boys. So aid boys being the kind of, that's like a professional role. Often with girlfriends or complex relationships in other countries. So the dudes often have girlfriends or complex relationships in other countries. Let me just cap it. So how does one manage love in a war zone? That's the last line of that.
Well, I likened it to love in a Broadway show, because I was a talent agent for years before I became a psychotherapist, where the temporary nature of a war zone, where everything is temporary, everything is heightened, it's very similar. We would call them showmances back in the day, people in a Broadway show. And of course, they're nothing alike in respect to how dangerous it is. But I think that there's no normal in a war zone, and that a lot of things happen in extremely heightened crisis situations that wouldn't happen if you were on the regular 9-to-5 grind. So if that is your normal, and you're going to stay there, maybe socialize with the local people, and, fall in love with a Syrian dude, because maybe that, you know what I mean? Like the aid boys, I don't see that changing, because again, it's temporary. People are coming for a 3-month stint and then they're out. And many of them are leaving long-term relationships to come and do this good work. So I think that for you, be realistic, and then look at your own blueprint of why are you being drawn to people in this temporary situation. And props to you, Mama, for doing that work, because somebody's got to, and thank God someone is, so we appreciate it. But look in and see, is the temporary nature of love, somehow does that resonate with your past?
There's a great movie with Tina Fey where she's in that exact situation. I forget the name of it. It came out like in the last 2 years.
Totally. I can't remember either, but I know it.
It was a great film. Well, let's wrap with this. So Terri, why is love about psychology and not magic? I myself, I'm not even prone to magical thinking. It's the only way I think is magically. So when I heard psychology, I was like, oh, downer on the love bunny. So tell me why.
Listen, here's the thing. I'm not saying love can't feel magical, but I'm saying attracting and sustaining real love is psychological, because it is the unresolved psychological thing so much of the time that is getting in the way of you energetically and emotionally attracting the person who would be your real, your plus one for life, your partner in crime, whatever you want to call it. And so why that's awesome news is that we don't have a lot of power over magic besides creating our own, but we have all the power over our own mental health and over becoming an expert on why we are the way we are. Sometimes you just need a great guide or someone to give you the empowered questions. Nobody has the answers but you, right? There is no love guru. I'm not a love guru, but I am probably the best catalyst you will ever find in your entire life for you to be your own love guru.
Terri, you are solid gold. What's the business we need to take care of now? Tell me when real love revolution. Hold on, I made notes before.
That's all right.
So first of all, I'm going to tell everybody I'm taking the Real Love Revolution course, because part of my my declaration for 2017 is I want to study a few things. So this is a great study track. This weekend, well, first of all, today is a new moon, so it's a beautiful day to like entertain beginnings. And it's Chinese New Year this weekend, and I actually identify more with the Lunar New Year than January 1st. And so this is in sync with spring for me. And I got a therapist. I've got you. I have lots of enlightening friends. And I just need to do something that's just like quiet and still and focused. And I want a regular barrage of questions. And that's why I'm doing this. So it starts, Real Love Revolution starts Wednesday, February 1st. It's 10 weeks. That means 10 modules. Every week you get a live weekly call. Yeah?
Yes.
And here's what excited me most about this, and you and I need to talk about this like in terms of business and collaborating. Therapeutically based meditations. So somebody asked me a couple weeks ago, it was like a potential business opportunity to do some meditations. And I'm like, look, I am not a meditation teacher. And you actually need to do your homework in terms of literal sonic resonance and different music and vibrations that create different reactions in the brain. When you're really messing with and getting inside someone's mind and particular words and relationships and all of that. So Terri is versed in this. She's done her homework in this. And what's your terminology around the meditations that the Real Love Revolution course has? What do you call them?
Well, they're therapeutic meditations, actually.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is we are hitting the unconscious mind and planting all of this possibility and openness. Like I know what will come up during each week of this course inside people. Like I know the resistances. I know from doing this for 20 years with so many women what happens. And so speaking to those things so that your unconscious mind isn't sort of getting in the way of all of the conscious work that you're doing is that we're laying down this expansion, this possibility, and we want to change what is in the unconscious mind. So we actively do it by bringing the material up with all the empowered questions and the PDFs and the conversations. There's so many other bonuses like that. I just kept adding things. So like I kept thinking like, oh, we need to hit the perfectionism. That's a bonus. We need to hit so many different things. But this was something that I'd wanted to do for a really long time because I knew, because I'm a past life regressionist, and there's a certain way that when you're working with people, it's like a slow induction, it's called, that really takes the defensive part of your mind and lets it just rest. So that's part of the language that we put in so that we're inspiring you consciously and unconsciously to be prepared for the change, right? To, as you were saying, like it doesn't just happen magically. There are consequences, and you change, and then other people notice the change and they feel threatened, and you'll have things happening in your life. And so these are ways that you can keep this internal stillness and silence and a solid sense of what you're doing. Like this is a gift that you're giving yourself. So I'm really, really excited about the therapeutic meditations.
Oh, okay. Well, to real love, to enough people becoming that real love that it becomes a revolution.
Yes, wait, don't hold one sec. I want to give you one more opportunity before you go. I'm doing 2 live master classes where all these questions can actually get answered live next Monday. So anyway, this in the thank you guys will get this, but I'm
all
doing
the questions that everybody sent in.
Yeah, as long as they get if they are on the calls. We're doing master classes for single women and women in relationships. We're doing separate live master classes to dive deeper into this material. So you'll get that in your thank you emails from this. I just wanted to tell you that because I just want to. We're just giving it. And then if you want to join the course, that would be great. I love it. But if not, you will get value anyway.
Commitment. I love it. Okay, love, and thank you everybody for being here. And to the magic, to the psychology, to doing the work, to holding out, to a real love revolution. We need it.
That's right, Mama.
Yeah.
I love you. Thank you. Don't go away.
Okay.
You're stopping it effectively? Good. Okay, goodbye. Just want to make sure. Don't erase it.
Are we off there?
I don't know. Are we off there? No, hold on. Hold on, because I want to talk to you.
Okay.
Just chill out. We could have just kept going.